All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Rays series, as well as all the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are now recorded live after every series during the regular season. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just going to be starred throughout the show, and we'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for my co-host Frank's instant post-game reactions after every single regular season game, titled The Mets Frankly Post-Game. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day of recording. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 144 of our show. And if you can tell on the screen for our audio, and for our video on the screen, for those of you watching live, you may notice that we have a special guest joining us today. This guy has been on our show many times before. You may know him from his podcast, where he discusses the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Please help us welcome back Anthony Rivera from the Subway to Shea podcast. And it's great to have you back on here. It's been a while. But we're back here to talk about a team that, this was a rough one this week. I don't like the timing of this. I wish we could talk a little bit more happily, but this was a rough one. But welcome back. Great to have you on once again.
Yeah, excited to be back on. I almost had you speechless during that intro there that you did for me, but I appreciate it. Always appreciate being on this show. Some of my favorite times is being on here, especially during the trade deadline show. And, I'm always excited to join Mets Weekly. And even though the Mets right now are in a little bit of a funk, which I'm pretty sure we'll get into, there is a light at the end of the tunnel to this. I don't want to be the ultimate homer because it wasn't a great weekend. But I don't want to say that I am absolutely 100% concerned and seeing the freak out that I've seen on X, which culminated in a post that I sent you guys in the chat about someone wishing that Jeff Wilpon was still owning the team. So, there's some stuff that's just out there right now. So let's reel everyone back in.
Yeah, obviously you're going to get your overreaction, especially after a series like this, where this is the first time this year that they have been swept in a series, which does tell you exactly what you need to know about this team, that they have been rolling for a majority of this season. And I think it all kind of just relegates of what happens the last 24 hours in New York Mets land. And that's basically just how everybody lives off of it. Some guys do, some don't. How I like to do in our group chat of creators, like to parody off of it and, put it in a satire way. But, I think we already know the components of this team and who has been succeeding, who hasn't been. And, I think when we get into a stretch like this with these types of expectations, it will always come with, this type of feeling that this is a chore to watch this team. And that's kind of how it felt for these last 3 games, because it was not great baseball that they did play. And there was plenty of components to it. Obviously, we will get into it, but I think, right now I'm not panicking. I know that we are going into the house of horrors that usually fuels panicking, obviously, tomorrow with the much needed off day today. But, I think moving forward, they're going to, continue to piece these things together the best way that they can, obviously with some of the impact injuries that hopefully they can get healthy. I'm not freaking out yet. But again, there are some things in this series that I think we're definitely showing a major concern and showing maybe some of the flaws on this team, especially with, if they were not to pick it up. And basically the main focus here is, and I think that you can agree with this as well, is, the main the main goal is for this to not snowball. Like, that's basically what they're looking at. Right now, you're in a spot where you're okay. But, there's a few stretches that you don't want to get into as this season continues to progress. And hopefully they were able to bounce back from a sweep like this.
And they've proven it since last year, right? Since
Absolutely.
the end of May last year, they've proven that they can bounce back and come back from these things. David Stearns has been able to plug in players here and there when needed. He made the most out of the trade deadline that he could. A lot of those players helped get them into the postseason and help them through the postseason. So that's why I have confidence that this won't snowball. But I do understand when Met fans do get upset about this, because this is the only way the Mets find themselves in this situation, right? They win the final game of the Washington series by the skin of their teeth, right? They were up 4-0. Kodai Senga goes down, and that changes everything, right? They give up 3 runs in the ninth. They almost blow the game. Then you go into this Tampa series, which with a team that, although they haven't been great, they've been hot this month, 1. And then 2, in the Kevin Cash era, I think that the record against the Mets, the Rays are just like phenomenal against the Mets. They've just like owned us. Yeah. So that's another thing, that not to take the race so lightly. But you get swept here this weekend, and now you got to go out on the road, and now you're facing the Phillies and the Braves. The Phillies swept Toronto this past weekend, so they're, I think, 2.5 games out. The Braves, I have not counted out yet. I don't know if you have, but there's always something in me that says that the Braves are never out of this. So even if the Mets, have a rough stretch here, the Braves and the Phillies could definitely get back in this. The Braves are only 13 games out. It's still, early here in June, and we saw the Mets come back from an early deficit here. So I get the understanding where, Met fans are concerned about this. It sucks. But, win the first game of this series against Atlanta. All you got to do is just win one. Start off with tomorrow, win that game, and then we move on from there. Atlanta's probably chomping at the bits to play us, because we basically celebrated on their field at the end of the season last year, and that was the last time they saw us. So I'm pretty sure that they want a little piece of the Mets, and the Mets have to start hitting with runners in scoring position. We're in the middle of June, and they're still having trouble. And this is one of the better offenses in baseball. If you statistically wise, they can't hit with runners in scoring position. They would be 10 times better than they are right now if they did that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've talked about this so much. Obviously, I keep track of it now, which is basically how comical it has become. They have stranded over 500 runners on base, and they haven't even gotten halfway through the season yet. And, I think as of right now, with how you're looking at the offense, it all really just comes to stringing together these consistent ABs or these competitive ABs. Obviously, the offense, we've talked about it so much, and we'll get into it with this series. Yes, the pitching was not great, and it looked human for the first time ever this year. Like, we've had a few blowups here and there, but, the pitching staff was not good, and one of the main reasons as to why they lost the series completely outright, and they got swept for the first time this season. But also the offense was no better. I mean, a combined 4 for 27 with runners in scoring position, a lot of chasing, a lot of ground balls, especially even on when they were scoring runs, a lot of ground balls as well. I mean, in that first game, I'm pretty sure Marte, he drove in both of those runs by hitting the ball into the ground, and he was able to beat things out like the old Marte that we know. I'm pretty sure Tyrone Taylor drove in a run by hitting the ball on the ground, which is something that we see a lot from this team, where they're maybe a little bit limited in speed and they can't really beat a lot of things out, and they ground into a lot of double plays, and they're top 5 in grounding into double plays this year. So there is a lot of things of concern with the offense in terms of situationally. Overall production, I mean, I think we're starting to see what this offense can be. Right now, I'd say that a lot of the inconsistencies come a little bit more from that bottom part of the order, and obviously they are not fully healthy. We know Vientos is out. Winker is going to be out for a certain amount of time. So they have some of these hitters that are going to be out, and it's not fully healthy, but it seems like a conglomerate of those young pieces at the bottom part where, you know, they're not showing these competitive ABs, or they're just showing a very inconsistent part of these competitive ABs. And it starts with guys like Francisco Alvarez, who just has not been great at the plate, even behind the plate. And it's really starting to get to him. And I think a lot of people can see Brett Beatty started off very, very hot coming back from his recall from AAA. He's cooled down a little bit, even though he's had a few big hits here and there. You know, even Ronnie Mauricio, who just got called up, who you can't really put much weight on because of him coming back from injury. But again, this kid's 24 years old. We got to start seeing something. And he hasn't been fantastic. He's shown a little bit, but he hasn't been fantastic. So I think the bottom part of the order is definitely more of a concern right now. I think that there's a way that some of them could possibly catch fire. But because we've seen it before, but again, it's all really about that consistency. And when you don't see these top hitters hitting, like Pete Alonso, who did not have that great of a series in this 3-game set, like Lindor, who's kind of slowed down a little bit since that whole toe injury, which is kind of understandable, which he's playing through. And then obviously, you know, Soto, who still hasn't gotten to that that high heights that we, you know, expect him to get to, but he's starting to come along a little bit. But I think when it comes to this lineup here, it's really just all about the decision making, the swing decisions, just overall that really start to be the death of this team with runners in scoring position. And it's going to catch up with you in a series like this, where the pitching didn't have it. They didn't have it with this pitching. And you know, it comes to many factors why. There were some bullpen performances that were bad. Starters were really bad in this series, especially those last 2 games. Obviously, we'll talk about Clay Holmes in a little bit, but I think it's really easy to say that, you know, the offense easily needs to start carrying its weight. And I think a lot of people are kind of shifting off of it considering the recency of the pitching not performing well, with Kodai Senga going down. So I think that sparked a lot of worry with everyone in this rotation. But again, and I think you also can agree with this, it's really just about the offense has to show the consistency. They also have to pull the weight that we expected them to, when not many of us expected this pitching staff to be as dominant as it has been throughout the season.
Yeah, and I'm giving the pitching staff the benefit of the doubt here. The fact that they carried this team through April and May, along with Pete Alonso. He was really the only one hitting with runners in scoring position. I think he was hitting over 300 at the time. I don't know if that's come down a little bit, but I think this is the first series really where the pitching got picked apart. And besides that, they've been really good. Even Griffin Canning was really good. And now he's, I guess he's turned into a pumpkin now and is back to the Griffin Canning that was in LA. And hopefully they can figure out a way to turn that around. Maybe it's just a dry spell for him. And look, he's played against some big teams and the Dodgers, and, you know, the Rays are that slap happy hitting. And I know that's the hitting you can't stand, right? Like you want to see power, you want to see home runs, and then you're getting 2-foot dribblers that are scoring runs here. But
it can be, that can be annoying, but this is also a Rays team that, like, it's really, really hard to miss bats with this Rays team. And I think that's the main annoying part of it, is putting away hitters, which the Mets really have a rough time. Like this pitching staff has a rough time getting those swings and misses. And if they're not facing a team that will give into that, because they're more built on that ground ball type of thing. And some pitchers aren't, sometimes pitchers aren't. Guys like Clay Holmes, guys like Griffin Canning, a lot more with the ground ball type of stuff. Obviously with them, less of the fastball usage. But I think that this Rays team is, you know, respected enough as to where, you know, they play a little bit of the small ball there, but they also can hit the ball out of the ballpark, which was something we also saw in this series.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they have some of the best hitting development in this game. And I think that goes unwavered sometimes, but, you know, it seemed like from every facet the Mets could have done something a lot better, and they were very self-inflicted in this game, in this series. It wasn't just the Rays completely destroying them, but there was definitely some opportunities for them to come through with the offense. They didn't, and it just it snowballed into the Rays getting their way against this pitching staff, and having like 3 straight games. I'm pretty sure they had like just a snowball inning, a cluster of runs that just flipped the game completely around.
Yeah, there are little things that this team does outside of not being able to hit with runners in scoring position and the pitchers having an off day. The defense has not been really good for this team. I feel like there's too many wild pitches and pass balls. That's a problem for Francisco Alvarez that I really feel needs to be fixed, and needs to be fixed very, very soon. Because what's the point of having Francisco if he's not going to hit? What's the point of having him back there if he's going to cost the team runs on his defense, right? He's doing it like Pete Alonso. He's got the yips to throw to first base. Like, you got to get this stuff taken care of. I don't know if it's Mendoza or whoever's the infield coach. Do drills and stuff for this. This should not be that him throwing to second base. I understand. Remember all the times he couldn't throw to second base to turn a double play. I get that one. The throw to home, the throw to first base. He's got to do better. And I know that he hurts every time he has to talk about it, and the whole thing with Senga getting hurt that really got to him. And I feel for him. But man, you're gonna have to do some type of drills or whatever. Same thing with Francisco Alvarez. He should not have this many pass balls. And there was a guy that retired. You have him all the way at the bottom here. Wilson Ramos had one of the worst years in baseball of how many pass balls he has. And I thought we were past that stage, but it seems like we're not. And it's costing the Mets runs. And you have, Stearns, who's a great defensive catcher. He throws runners out at second base. At the very least, if you are not going to, obviously they're not going to bench Alvarez, but can we do some sort of, at this moment in time, 50-50 split or something? Because, Alvarez, if he keeps playing and this stuff keeps happening, it's going to seem like it's okay for this stuff to continue, and he's not going to improve. So there has to be some, I guess, repercussions for this type of, I don't know, slap on the wrist. I don't know. Something has to get through to Alvarez that he's got to be, they're easy catches too, that he's just letting get past him. Can't have that happen anymore.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot go through like the, near the webbing of his glove. Like these are ones that are not taking bad hops. Like these are just ones that he's completely missing. And I don't know if it's, the struggles at the plate that are getting to him or whatever. And I think there's a lot of people, on Twitter, and I don't want to go completely into Francisco Alvarez because we've done quite a bit talking about that, especially when you know who my co-host is. But again, it's when it comes to with Francisco Alvarez, I think it gets misconstrued of people getting very, very, very frustrated with him, with the play that they are seeing because of the expectation. Obviously, he is only 23 years old. And I think that there was a lot that goes on Twitter of, I don't think anybody's calling him a dud. I don't think anybody's calling him a bust. I don't think anybody's just completely throwing him under the bus like that. But there's a lot of things that he needs to learn as a major leaguer that could cost a team if he does not get into those habits of that. And we've talked about it many, many times before. I've talked about opting to, just give him a little bit of a reset in Syracuse because it has not looked good. It really has not looked good. There's so many
progressions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very easy to say what we are seeing behind with Francisco Alvarez, it is definitely getting to him. And, as confident as the kid can be, it's very, very noticeable of how rough it has been. And it's also translated to the pitching staff too, where you're seeing a lot of these pitchers on our staff pitching a lot better with Stearns behind the plate. And even though it hasn't caught up to us just yet, we've had quite a few outings where Alvarez is behind the plate and these guys are just all over the place. They can't go deep in that, go deep into the game. And again, that's more self-inflicted to the pitcher too. And definitely from the 2 pitchers we had in this series, it's definitely like that. But again, before I get into this rundown for this entire series, I do want to get into some of you guys in the chat here just to say hello. We've got Matt, of course, from Mets Central coming in here. Ranger Central, which is also Evan. That's his co-host. W to having Anthony here, but no Unk. Unk he is referring to Frank. Frank was not able to be here today. He was very upset about it, but it's whatever. Scheduling just lines up like that. We got Daniel in here. What is going on? Saying happy Monday. I'm just saying it's a happy day off because it's been rough. Let's just say that.
There's also nothing that I like better when this team plays terrible that we just get a day off from watching baseball. Like I can't watch baseball every day and then have this stuff snowball. Just one day off, nice little break, and then we move on.
It's definitely a mood changer. Let's just say that it's definitely like that. We've got Keith Diaz, which I believe is Keith, of course, saying sup fuckers. Absolutely. Perfect entrance from him. I mean, I don't expect anything less.
Shane sons, baby.
Yes, absolutely. Truman Quinn saying this is the first shitty series of the year. I mean, they've played some rough ones, but this is where I think went full on amplified. It was a rough one. It was rough, and I do think this was the worst series that they played all year. But
it's the first sweep as well. They haven't
it
been
was
swept
the first
all year
sweep
yet.
Yeah, and it was one of the first bad series I think they've played at home because they've been really, really good at home as well all year. They've had a few rough ones on the road, but at home they've definitely played into the crowd here. Carlos Ramos, last comment here. I'll say, oh, come on, Carson. Where's the gasoline container at? I feel cheated. Yeah, I had to retire that one. It was getting a little bit disgusting. Apologies, but instead I got this Mets one that I was gifted a few weeks ago.
Knock someone out with this one.
There might be. I don't know. Maybe that's the main reason as to why the Mets are losing now. I don't know. That may be the thing. But I will be taking a sip of water from this one before I get into my rundown. You guys know the drill by now because I got to
hydration.
Do a lot of speaking. But anyways, let's run down this series, which again, like we said, was not a fun one, but we have to relive the events because we are here for the thick and the thin. So let's get to game one here. Clay Holmes would get the start, and with the only run on his line being a solo home run, surrender it to Jonathan Aranda in the fourth inning. But on a pitch count, Holmes would be pulled from the game after the fifth. More on that later. We will get into it. Ending his day, 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts on 79 pitches. The Mets offense would take advantage of defensive miscues by Tampa all game long, down 1-0 in the fourth after Juan Soto would reach on a fielding error by Taj Bradley. Pete Alonso would make it second and third with a double. Jeff McNeil would walk to load the bases. Starling Marte would tie the game on an RBI infield single. Tyrone Taylor would give the Mets a 2-1 lead on an RBI force out. In the fifth, the Mets would load the bases with back-to-back walks to Alvarez and Lindor. Nimmo would reach on a fielding error by Jonathan Aranda, and Juan Soto would draw the third walk of the inning to extend the lead to 3-1. Starling Marte would add on 2 more with an RBI single, his third RBI of the game. But this 5-1 lead going into the sixth would take an ugly turn real quick. Paul Blackburn would come in for relief, allowing 3 straight singles to Lowe, Diaz, and Aranda. Former Met Jake Mangum would cut the Mets lead in half with a 2-run single. Max Krennic would come on for the first time since being optioned, and he'd allow both of Blackburn's base runners to score on an RBI groundout by Jose Caballero and an RBI single by Cameron Misner. Misner would go on to steal second base, and Krennic would surrender the lead on a 2-run homer by Danny Jansen to cap off a 6-run sixth inning for Tampa, and a complete and utter collapse by the Mets bullpen. Justin Garza would come in for the 8th and the 9th to toss 2 scoreless innings to keep the Mets in the game, but the offense would stall out completely, getting runners in scoring position in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, but failing to score each and every time to total a night of 2 for 16, with runners in scoring position to drop game 1 of the series to Tampa 7-5. Game 2, Tyler McGill would make the start, and the roof would come crashing down on him early in the 4th inning after an embarrassing fielding error committed by himself that would eventually lead up 3 earned runs. Jose Castillo would come in to finish the inning on 1 pitch to close the book on a dreadful day for McGill. 3 and 2/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 unearned runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts on 82 pitches, down 1-0 in the third. The Mets would take the lead for a second after Brett Beatty would tie the game on a solo shot, his 8th of the year. Brandon Nimmo would plate Francisco Lindor's 2-out double with an RBI single. However, after the 4th inning blowout by McGill, the Mets would play from behind for the rest of the day. Jose Castillo would come back out in the 5th and surrender a run after an infield single and a pass ball charge to Luis Torrens and an RBI double to Taylor Walls. Ronnie Mauricio would launch his 2nd home run of the year to cut the Rays' lead to 7-3. Francisco Lindor would follow him with a 2-out walk where he'd take second on a wild pitch, and Brandon Nimmo would drive him in on an RBI single for his 2nd RBI of the day. After committing a fielding error to lead off the 6th, Jose Castillo would be pulled for Jose Butto, and he'd allow the inherited base runner to score on the first pitch after he threw to Yandy Diaz for an RBI triple. Jose Butto would come back out for the 7th and toss a scoreless inning with a strikeout. Ryan Stanek would get the 8th and put up a 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts. Justin Garza would get the 9th, working for the 2nd straight day, and he'd work around a 2-out double for a scoreless outing. The Mets offense would stall out from the 6th inning on, getting shut down by Tampa's bullpen for the 2nd straight night, and the Mets would lose back-to-back games for the first time since May 20th, 8-4. And in Game 3, which was yesterday, Griffin Canning would make the start, and he would struggle mightily with his command all day long. With 1 out in the 5th, Kranick would inherit 2 runners from Canning and allow both to score on a 2-run double by Jonathan Aranda, closing the book on Canning. 4 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 6 earned runs, 5 walks, 2 strikeouts on 89 pitches. Kranick would come back out for the 6th and toss a scoreless inning. He'd also pitch into the 7th and get 1 out. Ty Adcock would come in to get 5 outs into the 8th inning. With 4 strikeouts, Ryan Stanek would get the 9th and allow a walk and a hit before surrendering a 3-run homer to Junior Caminario. The Mets would end up bringing in DH Jared Young to finish the inning to save the bullpen. As for the Mets offense, a goose egg in the run column on 5 hits, going 0 for 7. With runners in scoring position as they get swept for the first time this season with a 9-0 loss on Father's Day, as the Mets now fall to 45 on the season, with the Phillies trimming their lead in the National League East to 2.5. Phillies will be playing the Marlins. I think that they are playing them right now, so that probably will update to either 3 games out or 2 games out by the end of the night. But again, not a great series, like we've said. There's plenty of takeaways from plenty of these performances that we have had in this series. Not fun at all. And we had a little bit of rain added to it just to pour onto the doldrums of this series. It just was not a fun 72 hours. And Anthony, I think that you can agree, like we said, just one of the worst, if not the worst series that they have played all season long.
Yeah, definitely the worst series that was played this year, all around. Pitching, hitting, defense. Nothing worked for this team, and basically Tampa Bay just picked them apart and spanked them big time here. And all they got to do here is on that flight to Atlanta is turn the corner here, forget about what happened, and try to get this thing fixed against Atlanta. They got 3 games against Atlanta. Then they're going to go to Philly, and then they come home for 4 against Atlanta. It's like the Mets couldn't have picked the worst time to have this happen than with this stretch coming up right now. It sucks that they have to go into these series and play now, which could go either 2 ways, either actually 3 ways. Either everything stays afloat they go 500 on this type of thing and really no movement happens, they can go in the totally opposite direction and the Phillies and the Braves can gain a lot of ground, or they can take advantage of these teams and kind of, put a little bit more breathing room between them. I'm going to stick with it being a little bit in the medium area right now, and that everything ends up kind of more in the 500 type of area. But yeah, this past weekend was not a good look for this team, and I do understand, fans being upset by the way this team played. It was just garbage. Basically, it sucks to say it that way, but they played garbage.
Yeah. It's no there's no other way to put it. I mean, it was just not a great performance whatsoever. Especially having that happen on your home field is definitely not the best feeling. Let's just say that. Before we get into, the more of the pitching performances, obviously I do want to do a little bit of a rundown on Clay Holmes, because he just surpassed a threshold that he's never done in his career. I do want to get into, the pitching, obviously, in this series. And, it's been great all season. But in this series, it just won itself of what we have seen all year. Mainly a lot of it, Tyler McGill. Oh, my goodness. That was one of the worst performances, and he's had quite a few. We've talked about this many times. We talk about this privately all the time. We all know that McGill has a talented arm. He's got good stuff, some of the best in the rotation, but he can't apply it. And that's the main reason as to why he's been in this predicament for 5 years. And he basically showed what he is made of in this series, of what happens when Tyler McGill and things don't go his way. I've talked about, the defense kind of failing him behind him. If this continues to happen and he continues to break down like this, there's only so many times where we have to get to the point where we call a spade a spade. And at this point, it basically just shows that McGill just can't handle this type of adversity as compared to some of these guys in the rotation that have done really well with this adversity and getting ground balls, like David Peterson, like Clay Holmes, like Griffin Canning was able to do, obviously not. And then, of course, with Senga as the professional that he is always dialing himself in. It's the same story with a guy like Tyler McGill. Every year it's the adjustments that go into spring. We're feeling good. He's made adjustments. He's getting the results in spring, maybe has a few good starts in April. And then he just shows why he has not been able to be a consistent starter in the major leagues. He has showed us every single year. It has been the fact that he's going to strike out a decent amount of hitters. He's going to walk a decent amount of hitters. And he's going to lose his command sometimes. And whenever he allows a few base runners, he defecates himself on the mound. This happens every time. And it comes to the point as to where we can just narrow it in is, yes, the kid's talented. Yes, he has some good stuff. But he's not able to execute. And I think that that's basically the whole story of Tyler McGill. That has been his entire story since the very beginning. And I think it really just comes to the point as to he just can't handle the mental game. He can't, because it's all mental, because we know the talent is there. And the way that he pitches around hitters when he doesn't have to, when he has this good stuff, and the way that he loses control so easily when he faces this adversity, I say it right here, and I've said this for all year, the last year as well. This is one of the softest guys on this team. He is. Mentally, he is just, when something doesn't go his way, gone. We saw things like that with Steven Matz. It's a little different of a thing.
Peterson, too, in the beginning,
but he actually was able to dial in, and he realized that, hey, it's all mental. Let's throw strikes, because I know that if I locate, I'm going to get a good amount of results. With McGill, still has not been able to figure it out. It's the same old story every single year. And that's the thing. He just, I think it's a victim mentality, as somebody's saying in the chat. I feel like he's a victim, as D is saying. I feel like McGill is a victim of an error or a couple of bad calls, and that's it. He just completely, he just completely lines it up as Ibby's here looking in here, one of our good friends, another fellow podcaster that you should also follow as well. But again, it's this is what we've seen from Tyler McGill. Obviously, Griffin Canning, I don't want to go deep into, but we've had this conversation before, specifically off stream. Like I said, this is what Tyler McGill is. I think we all can agree that this is what he is. Whether there is something that he could tap into, hasn't been able to do it at the major league level. And now we are going on 5 years. So I don't know what else to say. It's like, okay, this is what he is now. This is what Tyler McGill is, and this is probably what he's been throughout his entire career.
And you've backed him for a while there. I always mess with you about Tyler McGill, and like it's definitely a tale of two pitchers between him and Peterson, who kind of both had the same trajectory at first, both coming up due to injuries and started playing a big role in the rotation. Obviously, there was injuries to Peterson, and then he finally gets his hip fixed, and he's a totally different guy. Tyler McGill here, he has been given so many opportunities every single year that there's like the one pitcher. It's like, I don't want this guy on the roster right now. And somehow he ends up on there due to some type of injury to somebody else. Every year he's on this rotation. And I think a D put it, do you think an impending demotion was on McGill's mind? I don't think so, because this guy's been given so many opportunities to start here, and he's been sent down so many times. And I think Matt put it, Matt Talks Radio said, McGill's just a March and April merchant. Like, I don't know if maybe the guy doesn't have the stamina to be a starting pitcher for an entire season. He was good in April, same as last year in 2023 and 2022. And then he just folds. He did have a good September, which had us thinking last year that maybe this is the turning point for him, right? He was lights out in September. I think they won all his starts in September that helped his team get into the postseason. They wouldn't get there without his help. So we all thought maybe he turned the corner. He came into spring, had another great spring. He's basically Brett Beatty as a pitcher, if you think about it. Possibly. Like Brett Beatty has a great spring. He'll play well down in the minors. Then he comes up here and then he struggles. And that's what.
Or if you're a hockey fan, this is a good one. This is the Keandre Miller. If you're a hockey fan, you'd understand why that is funny. But I think it's really easy to be put out, especially compared to Peterson. And Ibby puts it in here. He says Peterson, Bulldog, McGill, Poodle. I don't think he's really that big of a poodle now, because I feel
Poodles
like it's more of a Chihuahua. It's a Chihuahua situation where he just melts at the sign of any type of adversity, and I guess he just can't handle it. And we even saw it during this series when he was about to be taken out. He couldn't even look his manager in the eye. I mean, he was that distraught of like, this is it. And I feel like we also get like an impression of like it seems like he just like this just happens. That's it.
Yeah. That's someone brought it up on my podcast that even during the post-game press conferences, I know they can't be you expect him to be angry or what, but like there's such a nonchalant responses from him that it's just like, is he really in this? Like, is he, he's just like, oh, I guess I'll just put it aside and pitch better next time out. But you're not pitching better next time out. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's like, when are we going to see it? It's like we don't want to hear all this talk. And I think that's what gets a lot of people angry. And then also there's a few frames of people. They'll be like, oh, this guy's smirking and he's this and that. So does it maybe get a little bit too much taken out of context? Yes, but we don't want to hear the talk. We want to see you perform. And there's only so many times where we just continue where we just continue to see McGill struggle like this. And this is basically what he's been. And we've seen him break down a lot of times this year, especially when May started, obviously, with him going through that April situation. I think it's really, really easy to say that, he makes these adjustments in April, but this is a long season. And, if you don't get to the 30 starts, you don't get to the 20 starts, we don't get a good sample of what he can do consistently. And as for the counterpart, for the guy who throws with his left hand in David Peterson, he's actually been able to give you those actual samples and be able to give you a string of consistency And it's been a while since we've seen a night where it's like, oh, well, maybe he just doesn't have it. Maybe he doesn't have it, but he's able to limit the damage. Like, that's what we've been able to see a lot from him. McGill, one thing goes wrong, snowball effect, avalanche, whatever natural disaster you want to talk about.
And too many pitches early.
Too many pitches early. Exactly. He's going to rise up the pitch count. That's another piece of his identity that we have seen for a long time in the major leagues. And that's basically what we saw in this Rays series. But again, I don't see how that's going to continue to get into the direction of improvement, because it's just continued to be a problem for him over and over and over again, especially when it was full on self-inflicted in this start, where he was throwing the ball backwards. And I mean, all 6 runs were pretty much on him. I mean, that's basically how you can put it in a reasonable standpoint. Obviously, with an error, it doesn't count against the earned run, but those 3 runs were on him after that whole blunder that he had on a sac bunt. Because like just fundamentally, also compared to Peterson, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do when he has the ball. And basically sometimes he doesn't know what to do when he has the ball on the mound. So again, with Peterson, we know he's a good athlete. He's been a really good, fielding pitcher for a while. But again, it's one of those things that the mental game has taken over a guy like Tyler McGill, as to where he's just the guy that they call up when this rotation is injured. But he's not the good guy to call up when this rotation is injured. And even though you can't have perfect starters, when we start to see the identity of Tyler McGill, it's like, why are we in this point where why can't we just look past him now and look at somebody else in the minor leagues to replace somebody? Because yes, I don't think that rushing up a pitching prospect is the right thing to do, because pitching is quite long development. But, there's only so many times every 5 days where we can see this guy on the mound as a consistent piece of the rotation and show you so much inconsistency on the mound. I think there's so much that goes into it where we've got his number now. Like, we know exactly what is going to come from Tyler McGill, like I just said. But there is one other piece that was in this series, that was Clay Holmes. And in this start, he ended up passing a threshold for the first time that he did in his entirety of his major league career, because he was a reliever, obviously, with the Yankees. He was a reliever with the Pirates after being a starter for like a few times. So this is the first time he's ever been a full-time starter. So he pitched his first 80 innings, technically not, I think it's like 78.2, but we're gonna talk about it in that way, because this is the highest innings total throughout his entire career that he just surpassed. And I do want to do a little bit of a rundown of what we've seen from Clay Holmes, because there has been a few, rough around the edges situations. Obviously, you expected it with him adjusting to being a starting pitcher, but we're seeing a freshly molded Clay, as I have in the headline here, where he approaches that 80 innings pitched threshold for the first time in his career. Obviously having a solid season, 2.87 earned run average. Obviously the peripherals are a little bit higher, with him giving up some home runs these last few starts, which it seems like he's doing every start now, but he seems to be living the damage so far. Getting hit hard, like we have said, but he's getting a good amount of chases, like we have seen with that kick changeup that he has, the new kick changeup. Like I have along the bottom, a 35.5% whiff rate against it, and for quality of contact, a 251 xwOBA, which is just basically exit velocities and launch angles, things like that, against his new kick changeup. But the overall thing has been, of course, him inducing ground balls and being able to chase outs that way, similar to what David Peterson was doing from the left side. But we also were seeing him get ahead of the count a lot. He may be a little bit vulnerable to leaving a few things over the plate, because maybe his arm's just not used to that workload yet, and he's still trying to get used to it. But I think the main thing of this rundown that I think was definitely shocking to me from what we have seen so far, and I think, and I think that this is something that we all can see from a guy that we saw in the Bronx of how he pitched. I am very, very surprised, and in a good way, I'm very, very surprised to see how much the command and the control has been refined from a guy like Clay Holmes. When we saw him a lot before he was a Met, obviously when he was a reliever where he'd lose command of one pitch and then he was giving up a lot of home runs. I've been very, very surprised. I've been very pleased to see him be able to throw more strikes than I thought he would to start this off, because we all knew that there was going to be some growing pains for him. But as he gets into this threshold that he's never gotten into before, we'll see how he does recover from it. Now, there was one piece before I swing it over to you, Ant, is obviously him being pulled after 5 innings in this series was one of the things that was like, oh, this is the reason why we lost the game. No, the team going, 2 for 16 with runners in scoring position was the reason why you lost the game. But again, with Clay Holmes in the matter, I think there was something that Carlos Mendoza said. He said he did not recover well from the start in Colorado. And I don't know if there is a call for concern about that, or it's just like, hey, the guy's pitching at high altitude. It's not a great situation for a lot of guys. I don't know if he's ever pitched in Colorado before. But, being out there for a long time, it definitely could do a little bit of effect to some guys compared to the other. But I think right now we're starting to see, him show that he can be a consistent starter, not a frontline guy, but he definitely can support a rotation. And it's been very, very pleasing to see him give us that consistency every single night where, this is a valuable starting pitcher now, as opposed to where he was a lockdown reliever for a good amount of time with the Yankees. So it's definitely been pleasant. And, I'd say, what are your thoughts on Clay Holmes so far? I think it's just the best way to talk about it now because of him passing this threshold for the first time. And then obviously being pulled after 5 innings after that start he had in Colorado. So definitely a good talking point at this current moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I would go on to say that he's been the most surprising start of the starting pitchers for me, but I feel like it's more David Peterson now at this point. We've seen pitchers that were relievers. We had one of them, Seth Lugo, turn into a great starting pitcher. And there's been Michael King has been able to do it. Was it Ronaldo Lopez in Atlanta before he got hurt? He was able to turn into a starting pitcher. So I had no doubt that Clay Holmes was going to be able to make this transition. Keith, as was in the chat, Keith Diaz of Shea and Sons, pushed and pushed and pushed on Clay Holmes, and he sold me on the fact that he was going to be a good starting pitcher. So kudos to Keith for sticking with that, and I think that he's pitched well. Now, my concern was, and I talked about this, if you listen to or if you watch Subway to Shea a couple weeks ago, I said he's getting close to his innings limit of being a reliever, and how are they going? They're not going to completely shut him down. I think it was ACJ in the chat said that he needs to be shut down for the year in July. They're not going to do that.
No.
This is why they did what they did on Friday night. On top of the fact that you mentioned he did not recover well from his outing in Colorado. They are going to do their best to stretch him out and have him for a full entire season. Probably by the time we get to the postseason, he's not going to be a starter on the postseason roster. If they make it, he'll probably be more of a innings eater or a relief, come out of relief for the Mets. And I had no problem with them taking him out after the 79 pitches. I was like, let me wait and hear what Mendoza has to say, because everyone was killing Mendoza for this move, and it all made sense to me. He struggled in Colorado to recover. They put an innings, a pitch count limit on him. Both
it's like
the
80,
pitching
85,
coaches,
right?
both
80,
the pitching coach. It was definitely 85. But since he finished with 79, they said, let's wrap it up. What are you going to do with 6 more pitches? You're going to have someone in the bullpen anyway. But both Clay Holmes and the pitching coaches agreed that this was the right move to do to help him recover. And on top of that, after the game was over, Clay Holmes said he felt better after this game than he did in Colorado. So you got to take account of that as well. And the fact that Kodai Senga got hurt pushed the Mets to now have Paul Blackburn come out of the bullpen and now pitch 5 days before, because now he's got to get himself ready to be a starter against Atlanta. I had no problem with this. The execution is what didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Blackburn didn't deliver in his outing. And even him, if you paid attention to him in the postgame, he's saying he's having a hard time transitioning from being a starter into being a reliever. The warm-up and the getting ready is so much different that he struggled. And we've seen him struggle. We saw him struggle in Colorado. We saw him struggle here. I had no problem with the way they went about it. The execution sucked, and it just didn't work. And that's all.
Yeah. And then, again, another piece of the detail in that game, again, like we didn't say, 2 for 16 with runners in scoring position. Yeah. Another reason why they lost that game. It wasn't just the bullpen, right? That was at fault. Yeah, that was the worst of the season. That was the most fails that they've had in a singular game.
And they scored
one
7
of the worst
runs.
Performances. Yeah.
They scored 7 runs still, and we're 2 for 16. That's how bad it was.
They scored 5. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yes,
runs.
yes. I'm sorry. 5 runs. My apologies.
They scored 5 runs, and all of them were unearned, I'm pretty sure, because of the defensive miscues. Like, they had a chance to win a lot of these things in this series, and there was a lot that went on. They were given chances, especially in these first 2 games. The last game, I would say, it was pretty much away for very, very early in the game. And definitely not a great Father's Day experience for all the fathers out there, which I know you are a new father out there as well.
We almost went to that game too.
You almost went to the game. Bad. Luckily you didn't, because that probably was one of the worst viewing experiences of the entire season at Citi Field. But I mean, it's whatever. Truman Quinn saying it the best way he can. We are the best bounce back team, and they have bounced back. They have retaliated from some rough outings that they have had, and they're going to have to do it in the House of Horrors in Atlanta. So, and I know that you can only be here until like 8 or so. So I do want to obviously have a little bit more of an opinion on this, obviously with, the segment that everybody loves on here. And that being studs and duds of this series. I think it's the best way to cap things off. Obviously, a lot of bad, like we said, not a great series. But one player in this series that was good, one that was not the best. I will swing it right to you for a stud in this series, if you can pick anybody out, because obviously a sweep is rough. But is there anyone you want to give a good shout out to, obviously, throughout this series? Because there was a few, I guess, ish.
I would go Clay Holmes. Considering the way the rest of the pitching staff pitched against the Rays, Clay Holmes limited them to 1 run, coming off of a tough recovery against Colorado. I think Clay Holmes would be the stud for me. It didn't work out in the end of the game; they lost it, but I think the stud would be Clay Holmes for me.
Yeah, definitely. Again, like and also taking the initiative of cutting things off when they did, like we said, he was. Cutting it off, obviously not recovering well, not pushing it the way that some pitchers do end up pushing it and making the situation worse, like we said. And obviously we can give him a stud too throughout the first 80 innings he has pitched, like we just said, because he definitely had a good start to the season. I'm going to actually give it to Justin Garza, because he pitched back-to-back days. He had up downs in there as well. I'm pretty sure he faced a good amount of 12 batters throughout this entire series as well. Looks like another one of those arms that David Stearns brings in, and maybe they can get a few weeks of consistency out of him. Obviously, relievers are not somebody that you're like, oh, this guy's going to be locked down every single time. That's the reason why they are relievers. But again, a good series from him. And the biggest gift that he got before the 3rd game of the series was being optioned down to AAA Syracuse. And they needed a fresh arm, and that being Ty Adcock, who also actually pitched a decent performance hidden in that 9-0 disaster from yesterday, where he got 5 outs and 4 of them on strikeouts. So that was definitely impressive. But what was not impressive is obviously these duds we're going to list off. And there's definitely some honorable mentions we can put in here, but the main ones that we want to put out here, Anthony, I'll swing it right back to you. Your dud for this series, who do you think?
I want to say Tyler McGill, but I can't beat up on him so much more than I already have. Can I put two in there?
Oh,
Two?
sure. List as many as you want. This goes merit. Yeah.
I'm gonna put Ryan Stanek in there as one
Okay.
of them.
Yeah.
And Max Kranick as the other one. Max Kranick had been good all of April, and I don't know what has happened to him. Maybe it's been overworked, overuse. I don't know if him getting sent down changed things, but he did not have a good series, and he has not been that guy that's been able to hold runners on. We talked to all April how good he was at holding runners on and not being able to give up runs, and he struggled in this series. And Ryan Stanek, man, what the heck happened? Like it's back to when we first got him. Like the postseason Ryan Stanek is like gone. This is a guy that he just can't finish off batters for some reason, and he has the tools to do so. Like that's why I'm getting on Ryan Stanek, because I believe he's better than this, and he has just struggled. So those are my two duds out of the bullpen.
Yeah. Again, I think the pitching will take the center stage, obviously, in this category. And I think I'm going to give it to someone. I think I gave it to the last episode we actually did it, and that being Griffin Canning, who just had a awful outing. And of course, the offense didn't do anything, but he was just all over the place. You walk 5 hitters, that's definitely not going to result in a good outing for yourself. And he was just missing spots all night. People were saying on Twitter, I was actually not home for this game. I was kind of following it on my phone. People were saying that it was a big hitter's umpire behind the plate for that third game. But if you're missing by as much as he was missing, something's got to give there, and you got to hold him accountable in that way.
I think he had 2 wild pitches too, or 2 pass balls.
He was all over the place,
like, if you're not going to be, if your stuff is not going to be good, and you're putting runners on base, can at the very least you not throw a wild pitch?
Yeah.
Like how many times do we have wild pitches and pass balls that have cost this team's runs after runs, whether it's the pitcher's fault or Francisco Alvarez's fault? That needs to be nipped in the bud real quick.
Yeah. I think, with the way that these guys were walking guys last year, it's obviously improved as to sequencing, but we're still seeing these costly pitches where the guys are just losing their grip, they're missing spots, and it's costing them deadly. And there's only so much that, a guy like Luis Torrens or Alvarez can do, even though some of them are inflicted on them, because we've had a decent amount of pass balls too. But then we've had also some wild pitches where these guys can't throw and find the plate. And Stanek is a really good pick, obviously, because he has a very low floor as a pitcher. Like, we've seen some really bad blowups from him, but we've also seen some dominance from him. We're going to have to find some kind of a median there, because we can't really be seeing this type of inconsistency, even though relievers are inconsistent no matter what. But it's really easy to point things out of, is this guy going through a rough stretch? Maybe. And maybe there is a stretch where, like, we don't see him in this Atlanta series coming up here, so they just try to get some things right with him. Or if there's an more advanced addition to it, and that being obviously, moving on from him or moving him down the pecking order, we'll see what they do there. I don't think that they're very close to doing that yet. I think the more of the mentality that I go in with a guy like Ryan Stanek is, if they kept Adam Ottavino around so long last year, I think that they're going to give a leash to somebody like Ryan Stanek, who they traded for last year. Or I could be completely wrong, and Adam Ottavino is the only one who has dirt on this organization and was staying for the entire year. Because I'm pretty sure that over the offseason it crossed their mind. They were like, oh yeah, we should bring in Adam Ottavino, but they didn't do it, thank God. But Anthony, I know that you're on a little bit of a time crunch here, but do you have time for some questions from the chat, or do you?
Yeah, I could probably take a few.
Okay, so we have a few topics in here that people were bringing up, obviously saying, Torrens should start more. Stanley saying that in the chat. And, Matt saying, the series went downhill after Mendy took out Holmes after 5 innings from Matt. I can definitely see that as a possibility, but I think that was more planned. It's pretty easy to say that it was. But there is one piece here, ACJ, who's saying this, and I don't know if you agree with it. I think I already hinted to it. saying that Alvarez needs to be sent down along with Mauricio, and they both need to work on their approach at the plate. They're both automatic outs. Now, I think it's more of the matter of consistency that you're seeing right now with them at the plate, and then also, just caught up there guessing at the plate. But it's a show of a lot of the young players. But and is there anything that you would like to add to that? Because I know that Alvarez has definitely been in a lot of fire recently of what he cannot do compared to what he can do, and it's definitely starting to show of a young catcher really lost in his way right now.
I agree. Definitely Mauricio needs to be sent down.
Yeah,
I thought he was obviously he was brought up too early because of an injury to Mark Vientos, but he definitely needs to be sent down. His even on Friday night when Fairbanks struck him out to end the game, and the Mets had an opportunity to at least tie it or something, and he completely owned him, and he just looks out of balance, out of place. He's hit a couple of home runs, but he needs some more fine tuning. And if he's not going to be, the ultimate third baseman on defense, then there's no point in having him. And I'm pretty sure he'll be sent down once Mark Vientos comes back, who's, I think, going on an assignment this week. So we'll see him soon. Francisco Alvarez, he might be a little bit too complacent and too comfortable because all these things that he's been doing, he's still getting a lot of playing time. Stearns, who's played a lot better than him, has not been, and obviously Stearns has not been great hitting the last couple of times he's been playing, so that's a part of the reason. But if they're both not hitting, the defense comes into play, and Stearns is a better defensive player than Francisco Alvarez. Maybe he does have to be sent down just so that he can clear his mind, and maybe he just needs this to be like, oh, this is a wake-up call for me, so I can be a little bit better here. Because I don't know if it's the hand that's bothering him still, but the guy only has 2 home runs. He's not really providing much on offense. And the thing that bothers me the most outside of the offense is, like I said, the passed balls behind the plate and giving up runs there. So, when they had Hayden Sanger, who can hit, but is a pretty good defensive catcher, and Stearns there, the team was playing very well. So, if they sent him down just to reset himself, I wouldn't be upset or shocked about it.
Yeah, I think a guy like Sanger really held his own, but to start off the season behind the plate, obviously he's not the best hitter, never will be, but he's a veteran guy that, a lot of guys like throwing to him, especially in the minor leagues. I do think that what is best for a guy like Alvarez, it's not even just overall the offense, which has been disappointing, as we all know, but it's all just basically just him mentally in general. And we've talked about it before, where I think it's time to maybe consider giving him some of this time in AAA to kind of reset things, because we know he is better than this, even though he has not shown that much since that injury that he did have last year, and since that rookie year where he was touching Johnny Bench for rookie catchers. But they gotta figure something out here where they can reset things, because just letting it slide here, it's going to send a message again to Alvarez is like, this stuff is okay. And it should not be okay, where he's making a lot of these mental mistakes and this lack of consistency and swing decisions at the plate, just all of it. It's definitely been noticeable. And whether he is confident or not, like we have said, it's definitely getting to him. We can notice when something is getting to a player, specifically with the body language. And it's definitely been a frustrating return for Alvarez ever since he came back from the injured list. But either way, Anthony, thank you for joining us. Obviously, always a pleasure. I'm sure you will be a part of the trade deadline stream that we always do every single year, the marathon that everybody enjoys so much. But either way, great to have you on here, just singular, talking it out. Again, like I said, I wish it was a little bit more of a brighter, way to talk about things after them being swept. But again, you can, plug whatever you want to plug here. Let everybody know where to find you. All your links are in the description, by the way, for those of you who are watching right now. But yeah, all yours.
Yeah, you can follow me at Subway to Shea on Instagram, X, TikTok. I have all my content on there. If you want to listen to Subway to Shea, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube, helps me out. I think I'm 15 subscribers away from 1,000. So that's a little bit of a milestone for me personally. I would appreciate if you guys subscribed and checked it out. I have my latest episode came out yesterday morning. So we talked about all this, the Clay Holmes issue, Paul Blackburn, the Senga injury, Peterson pitching well, and obviously this offense that actually the offense has been hitting. They're not hitting with runners in scoring position. So I break down, the top 6 have really been hitting from, Lindor all the way down to Marte and McNeil. The other 3 have not been hitting, but the top 6 have been. They just can't hit with runners in scoring position. So they need to figure out a way to fix that.
It's all about timing, and like I said, rough timing for this one, obviously, with the series we're recapping here. But great to have you on, Anthony. It's always a pleasure. Again, you guys can go follow him. All of his links are in the description. And I'll see you off stream, of course.
Of course.
But,
of course.
For those of you in here, make sure to go follow him if you have not already. But good talking to you, Anthony.
Appreciate you, Carson, and all the Mets Weekly fan base. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
All right. Anytime. Okay. All right. So for those of you in here, let's switch over to my solo cam here as we're going to finish out the show here. We've got plenty of other stuff to talk about. I do want to get into the injury report, which is very, very lengthy, especially with what we have seen be updated for these last couple of days. We have 4 position players on this injury report, and we also have 4 pitchers on this injury report. So I do want to start off with the pitching side of things. Obviously, with Frank not here, I got to take over for him. So that is that. But as for the pitching side of things, we start with the biggest news of them all, and that being Mets starting pitcher Kodai Senga, that he has been diagnosed with a low-grade right hamstring strain, and he will be re-evaluated in 2 weeks. Although his timetable for return to the mound is still unclear, Mets manager Carlos Mendoza stated that Senga is in good spirits regarding the news. The 32-year-old right-hander exited Friday afternoon's game in the 6th inning after feeling discomfort from jumping for a high throw while covering first base. We also got something from John Heyman that it's probably going to take 5 weeks, which is very understandable. He's going to have some rehab outings, obviously, and getting back into the swing of things. So definitely it's all about covering the innings for the next month with Senga out. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be as long-term of an injury as we had last year. Mets starting pitcher Frankie Montas struggled again in his 5th rehab start for AAA Syracuse on Friday night, tossing an inning and 2/3, 7 hits, 8 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout on 58 pitches. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza specified that the most important factor is how he recovers from these outings regardless of the results. The 32-year-old right-hander is expected to make 1 more rehab start for AAA Syracuse before the Mets make a decision. Montas has been sidelined since the first week of spring training due to a right lat strain. Mets starting pitcher Sean Manaea completed his 3rd rehab start yesterday afternoon for High A Brooklyn, tossing 2 innings and a third, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts on 56 pitches. The 33-year-old southpaw is expected to make another rehab appearance for AAA Syracuse later this week as he continues to get closer to returning to the Mets rotation. Manaea has been on the injured list since the beginning of March due to a right oblique strain. Mets reliever Brooks Raley will begin a rehab assignment tomorrow for Lohe Port St. Lucie, starting a full 30-day ramp-up. This is Raley's first live game action since undergoing Tommy John surgery that included an internal brace procedure back in April of 2024. The 36-year-old southpaw went on to re-sign with the Mets this spring on a 2-year deal that features a club option for 2026 worth over $4 million. And now to the hitter side of things, outfielder Jose Siri has suffered a setback in his recovery after the MRI revealed slower healing than expected, and for that he has not been participating in baseball activities for the time being. Siri was placed on the injured list back in mid-April due to a fractured tibia bone in his leg that he suffered after fouling a pitch off his shin in West Sacramento. Mets infielder Brett Beatty exited yesterday's game due to some right groin tightness. After the game, Beatty specified that he felt discomfort while chasing a pop fly in foul territory. The Mets consider him day-to-day and don't believe that it is serious enough to send him for further testing. Mets outfielder Jesse Winker is still multiple weeks away from beginning a minor league rehab assignment, as he still remains in the initial 6 to 8 week recovery time frame. Winker is currently on the injured list due to a right oblique strain that he experienced making a throw from left field back in early May while it was in the series in St. Louis. And Mets infielder Mark Vientos is expected to begin a minor league rehab assignment on Tuesday. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said that Vientos will have 2 more days of batting practice and overall baseball activity before beginning game action in Syracuse. The 25-year-old slugger also ran at 90% effort on Friday as he recovers from a right hamstring strain that landed him on the 15-day injured list about 2 weeks ago. So plenty of news there. Obviously, the one piece that is very, very important, there's obviously things that were put in here where, minor little details, but Kodai Senga, obviously, like we said, there's not really much of panic right now in that room in the Mets clubhouse, which is a good sign. Glad that we avoided the worst because he definitely was down on the ground for a good minute. But again, it's going to take 5 weeks for him to recover, which is fine. Don't rush him back. Obviously, it sucks considering what type of season that he has been having that was contending most likely for the Cy Young, but it's whatever. Either way, Vientos definitely will be great to have his bat back in the lineup. I know that he's been struggling, but I also do think that some AAA pitching will be good for him to kind of reset a little bit. Like you said, maybe similar to Alvarez, but not in basically the same extreme. Brooks Raley, another one, like we said, that would be a great addition to this bullpen when he gets back healthy. Like we've said, from either the left side or just overall consistency, we know that we'll see, if he is a piece in this bullpen, he probably will end up being one with him signing a major league contract. Now, speaking of transactions, all this stuff, we did have a press conference from David Stearns on Friday, where he talked a little about what was going on with the team, specifically with the pitching. We also had a little bit of a hint of what they're looking at for the deadline, which I think we all knew was pretty much obvious. And that's speaking of in the Brooks Raley term. But there was also some other quotes that I want to put out here that he did say on Friday from his presser. Of course, the boss man speaking. He was asked about the early success of the Mets starting rotation, and he said, I expected us to have a good starting rotation, a good pitching rotation, but sure, a sub-3 ERA probably exceeds my expectations, especially when you add on the injuries that we had in camp. But I also saw reason to believe that each of the guys that are in the rotation mix could and would be successful. We also got some comments about Pete Alonso, obviously with his future still unclear. We know that these questions are going to continue to roll in as they may, whether they are going to be relevant or not. He said that I'm not going to touch on any sort of the contract talk discussion, but he is having a tremendous year, and he's been an enormous offensive component to our team. I think our lineup as a whole is functioning at a real high level, and as we envisioned, Pete has been right in the middle of it since day one. He's really taken his offensive game to another level, and it's been really fun to see. So for those of you who are making rumors that maybe Stearns doesn't like Pete Alonso, I think we can put those to bed because I think he definitely is watching what Pete Alonso is doing. We also had some of a discussion about the infield possibilities with a huge surplus of infield options and young infield options. He said that it's a constant discussion. The playing time carousel and puzzle is one that you're always talking about. We've got a bunch of good players on the infield, a bunch of good young players on the infield. So definitely it doesn't seem like much is going to be set in stone for now, obviously with guys like Beatty, whether he is producing or not. Jeff McNeil, obviously in the infield, and he has been producing. We'll see what happens with Acuna. We'll see what happens with Mauricio. When Vientos gets back, it's definitely going to be a little bit more crowded. So there's definitely going to be some discussions that they do have with the infield, but obviously they see all these guys as viable options for viable different scenarios, and for good reason considering their ability. It's not, world breaking as to what we have seen, but again, this infield has definitely been has shown its depth. We've definitely seen the ability of what we can get. But there was another piece of comment that was kind of just directed towards what they were looking at for the trade deadline. I don't want to get completely into specifics here yet, but there was a hint at that the Mets were kind of looking to replace what they were getting from AJ Minter. I think what we really heard from David Stearns in that press conference was basically him saying, we're looking for someone who can neutralize left-handed hitters and right-handed hitters, which is something that AJ Minter was brought in to do. There are a lot of lefty relievers out there that most likely will be on the market in the trade market. There's some guys out there that maybe the Mets go after. As to know who it will be, it remains to be seen. But we know that there is one name that obviously has been mentioned, especially with what the Red Sox have been going on with. We know that Aroldis Chapman has been mentioned. Somebody that I would prefer to stay away from. That's just me. I just have seen enough of Aroldis Chapman where he burns out throughout the big stretch of the season, and he's not as effective. We've obviously seen his blow-ups in the postseason. That's not something I would pursue. If they end up doing it, it's fine because he's not going to be in that closer role to be in that big high-leverage situation. He's going to more like anchor the bottom part of this entirety of the bullpen. But again, we'll see how they do respond to this because like we've said, Brooks Raley is with the organization again. He re-signed with the team. They have, team control over him for next year. We'll see if they get that second lefty in the bullpen. We know that Jose Castillo has not been a world beater, but he's had some good outings and he's had some bad ones as well. So we'll see how they add up the consistency and how they kind of bring off the workload of some of these guys who have been more effective than the other. Obviously, more of the locks. Edwin Diaz, he's your closer no matter what. I say it every single time, even though he's my favorite Met. I'm going to establish this here. He's your closer. He's going to be in the ninth and he's going to come in there. If people don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Reed Garrett's been phenomenal all year. He's definitely someone who is in that mix, and he will continue to be. Huskar Braziman has been phenomenal this year. He will continue to be in that mix. And we'll see what the whole situation is down the stretch of the season of the usage with him going multiple innings. And, he also was, starting as well. He had two opening tasks that he was doing before even going out of the bullpen, and he's definitely had a great season. Obviously, guys like Matt Kranick that I'm pretty sure Anthony mentioned early on in the show, he struggled recently, had a good start to the season. I don't know if this is a postseason piece. I'm not going to lie. Because there are some pieces of vulnerability with him that I've talked about many times, even when he was producing the way that he was. Some of the slider location, the lack of strikeout stuff, or the lack of swings and misses that he does get are a little bit concerning. It's okay to contact manage, but again, location can always catch up to you, and we're starting to see Max Krenick give up quite a few home runs recently and give up a lot of hard contact as well. So we'll see how they even that out, of course. Guys like Ty Adcock, who are here. He's a depth arm, of course. Danel Nunez is kind of quiet. It's kind of quieted down for him recently. Maybe he's somebody that does come up at some point. We know he was up here. Didn't seem like he was ready. We'll see what they do with Jose Budo. I'm curious to see what happens there. Ryan Stanek, like we said, he's had his struggles. He's had his really good outings too. Somebody in the chat, I think it was Carlos, saying that, he's not trying to make any excuses and being wishful thinking, saying that I trust Stanek that he will return to form. I'm not making excuses for him, like he said, because it's been pathetic to watch. But he looked too good in 2024, and especially in the postseason as well. That's another piece that you can add in here, and I think that they want to keep him for that postseason experience. But there's definitely some decisions that they're going to have to make with this bullpen, not as extreme as it was last year, because last year you had maybe one or two reliable relievers. You have multiple guys who make the bullpen deep, whether they've had good outings or not. For the most part, it has been good. But I do think that we are going to see them either go after a left-handed reliever or just two relievers in general at this deadline. Last year it was Huskar Brazaban, who struggled a lot after the deadline. We'll see who they go after. Ricardo's saying, I would love one of those lefties from the Rays. The Rays are still in playoff contention, so I don't know if that's going to be something of note yet. But we'll definitely keep an eye out for some of these guys, some of these left-handed pieces. And then also there's these teams not competing of an extra reliever to deepen the bullpen. In possibility, we know that the Mets have been attached to some of these relievers out there. There's one from Toronto that they have been linked to. I can't think of his name. Somebody can tell me. They need two relievers for me, one righty and one lefty. That probably will end up being the case. I do want to see him go a little bit more in the featured part, not just because of any PTSD, but it's more of just the fact that, with the rotation struggling without the Senga innings, they're going to have to pick up a workload down the stretch of the season. They're going to have to figure out how to piece together a bullpen that could possibly do something. I know that the Mets have been attached to Ryan Helsley. That's been somebody else that has been brought up. He's obviously a right-hander, but a very hard thrower as well in his contract year. So we'll see what goes on with that. Another guy, David Bednar, has been talked about for multiple years now. There is a few guys in LA that I've seen some stories about, specifically Kenley Jansen, obviously. We've seen them attached to Hector Neris, who's also there. There's been plenty of guys who they have been attached to. We'll see how they address this, because relievers you can just find at any point and see, what you get from there. But I do want to add on from, what David Stearns said about the upcoming trade deadline. Obviously, people are talking about center field, things like that. And we're talking about a lot of these other types of pieces that they can bring in and maybe fill some holes on the roster. I don't know if they're going to be doing strong buy. I don't know if they're going to be doing a soft buy. I have no idea what it's going to be. But I do trust David Stearns to make the right decisions to improve this roster. We obviously know they're going to be buying at the deadline, because it's nearly impossible, I think, for them to not be in this race by the trade deadline. I know the Mets will take that as a challenge, but we'll see what happens here. Carlos Ramos saying, I don't think that these ads are going to mean we finally get rid of some of the dead weight. That's another thing of, do they make a decision on some of the infielders here, where it's a crowded infield at the moment? Do they make a decision on them to allocate to the team? Do they maybe add to the rotation to maybe give you a frontline piece to go along with Kodai Senga when he comes back. Obviously, with him, on that limit right now, and not here, and with the rest of the rotation not we're used to a certain workload. Guys like Manaya coming back, or guys like Frankie Montas, who we don't even know what's going to go on with him because he's definitely struggled in his rehab outing so far. So we'll see how they do form this all together, but it's great to see David Stearns, obviously always be as complex as he is. He's very straightforward. He's very honest. He's not going to completely bullshit you and sell you a bit of a bill of goods, but it really does go a long way to have somebody communicate that well. And, I think that their plan as of right now is kind of just to see how things map out. They want to get healthy. They want to see this team at full strength. Guys like Vientos, guys like Winker, guys like Senga, Manaya, Montas, they want to see what they look like at full strength, and then they'll address what they need to address. And I don't know what direction they're going to go in. We've seen some rumors, but we also have seen the Mets like to do some things around behind closed doors, and I think that's how they're going to operate this year, and that's how they'll continue to operate. And we'll obviously give you the coverage of the guys that you will see them trade for. Obviously, the big trade of Rafael Devers is kind of taking center stage right now. It basically shocked the world with the timing of it, but I don't see the Mets making any blockbuster deal at the current moment. So if anybody are pushing for the team to make some big trade right now, it's not going to happen. So you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to sit tight. And we'll see what happens. Let's get into, obviously, going forward. Two Cats actually just came into the chat saying the most important stretch of baseball coming up. Huge, absolutely, against two division rivals that you can definitely bury beneath you, with us in first place and hopefully shaking off this Rays series, which was just absolutely miserable. But I do want to get into this upcoming series and kind of preview it here, because obviously maybe it's somewhat of a fool's gold. Who knows? Because the Braves are always still the Braves, no matter if they're struggling or not. They will always give the Mets fits. That'll always happen. It's never going to be easy, but we are going into the House of Horrors known as Truist Park in Atlanta, the place where heartbreak has happened so many times for the Mets. Last time we saw them, like Ant said early on in this episode, we clinched on their home field with that big exclamation point home run by Lindor in the top of the ninth, a big comeback, and the Mets, of course, doing those big heroics. But we will see what happens here. But again, let's preview this series, because there was a little bit of a lineup that went on with this team over the weekend where they kind of rearranged their starting rotation, because obviously they want to sweat against the Mets because they're so scared of us, right? That's the reason why. Probably not. I think they just want to have their best pitchers here. But here is your probable starters for this series that starts tomorrow. Game one. David Peterson will get the series opener coming off of a remarkable complete game shutout against Washington. He'll face young breakout right-hander Spencer Schwellenbach, which is a great name to say, but I hate that he's on the Braves, obviously, because he's pretty good. First pitch will be tomorrow, Wednesday night. Tomorrow on Tuesday night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. Game two will be Paul Blackburn taking Kodai Senga's place as he goes to the injured list. Like we said, he'll be facing the reigning National League Cy Young Award winner, Chris Sale. First pitch will be on Wednesday night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. And then the series finale will go to Clay Holmes, hoping to shake off that fatigue like we talked about back in Colorado. He'll go up against the fresh off surgery right-hander Spencer Strider. First pitch is on Thursday night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time for the third night in a row on SNY. So obviously we know that the Braves, it has not been a fun season for them. Their offense has definitely been underperforming, but their pitching has had some bright spots. Even though their bullpen has been a complete mess in and out. Right now, they've had a lot of guys get injured, of course, especially with some of their starters going out. But Spencer Schwellenbach, we all know, big arm, has a complete game this year. I mean, he's been cruising recently. Chris Sale, obviously coming back from the injury towards the end of the season where he was not able to pitch against the Mets. This should be an interesting one, obviously. Ricardo saying, don't matter how bad the Braves are, they will always wake up and remember how to play baseball against the Mets. Exactly. So you can't take this one with a grain of salt. I definitely am not. I think we've all learned the lesson. Raciel Iglesias, their closer, has had a really, really rough season. So hopefully they can take advantage of that. That would be great. They have gone through so many different relievers, including, the old Jesse Chavez, who's always seems to be there every single year that they sign on a minor league deal. Rafael Montero, former Met, he had a pretty rough go at it for a second. They've had a lot of guys get injured as well. They even brought back Craig Kimbrell. Yes, Craig Kimbrell in 2025. That's how desperate that they got. And then obviously for their lineup, they have quite a bit of guys struggling offensively. And that obviously starts with a guy like Michael Harris, who has had a rough go at it at 71 OPS plus. Alex Verdugo, who they brought in. It's kind of like that late put in for a guy such as Jerickson Profar, who was obviously suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. So he's also had a rough go of it. Their biggest highlight, obviously, has been Matt Olson. Marcell Ozuna has also been hitting. We already know they've got big swingers. And then, of course, Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back just from injury, who has been red hot in OPS, over 1,100s to start off the year. He's been playing out of his mind. And then, of course, guys off the bench that can be pesky as well. Eli White has done a lot of the playing time there while Acuna was out. So again, this is still the same Braves team that still can make some mistakes. Even though they have a lot of struggling hitters, they still have a lot of talent in this lineup. So they're still going to have the game plan. This is still the Braves. Like I've said, this is still the Atlanta Braves that have given us nightmares for years and years and years. So again, I am hoping that we get 2 out of 3 here. I think that the Mets will win 2 out of 3. A sweep, we'll see. It all really depends on what happens with that Blackburn start. If he is able to pitch a lot better than he did in this Rays series, as well as Colorado too. I asked you guys in the chat, 15% of you guys are saying that the Mets are going to sweep. 56%, which is pretty much the majority here, are saying that the Mets are going to win 2 out of 3. 22% are saying the Braves are going to win 2 out of 3, and then 7% of you are saying that the Braves are going to sweep. So again, I think that there's a little bit of uneasiness from this series that they did have against Tampa, and that's very, very, that is very, very meriting, of course, and it's something that makes sense, of course, because it was a really rough game, but they're going to have to shake it off. They are going to have to shake it off and move on to Atlanta, get a much needed off day, and we will get 3 night games in this series. We will see what is in store for another wild events. I'm sure that we will get at Truist Park, because there always seems to be a wild competition between the Mets and Braves, and they are always I don't want to say fun, because they are definitely stressful every time they play the Braves, but they are definitely a sight to watch. Let's just say that. So hopefully they can turn it around, coming off the worst series. Like we said, they've had all year. First time they have been swept all season. So again, I think I'm going to end it off here, because, hour and a half here. It's only me, and I don't want to completely lose my voice. I'd like to have my voice for the next few days, and then rest it for the next podcast episode, which I am sure my co-hosts will be rejoining me. But either way, we're going to end it off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much to Anthony Rivera from Subway to Shea. Make sure to go follow him. The links are in the description for being a special guest. He's been on here many, many times. I'm sure he'll be a part, like I said, of that trade deadline stream that we always like to do with a bunch of creators. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But we are definitely weeks and weeks away from that happening. We still got baseball to be played. So hopefully the Mets get into that position as to where when it comes to the trade deadline, they're in good position, and all they needed is a few pieces to address at the trade deadline to go into the postseason. So for those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel and turn on those post notifications to not miss when we go live. Follow us on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually, including my two co-hosts who are not here today. And of course, on TikTok, of course, for my co-host Frank's post-game reactions on TikTok titled The Mets Frankly Post-Game. And of course, rough series, obviously, at home was not great. But again, like I said, they have to flush it. They have to move on. Don't let it snowball. Don't dwell on it. Let's go Mets. And we will see you guys next time.